the metaphor of the elephant in the room. We have all been in situations where there's an obvious problem at the office that people are afraid to talk about. In your experience, what are we afraid of that keeps us from moving forward?
Well, it's interesting. I think we're so fearful. I think it's a couple of things, but I think the biggest thing is we're fearful that if we bring it up, that we're going to make things worse. That somehow, if I bring up this topic, that person might get upset, they might react, maybe they'll give me the cold shoulder. And, it's just going to make things worse. So we tell ourselves this story and then kind of convince ourselves it's not worth saying anything. And I think that's one of the big, big reasons.
But in some ways, saying nothing just feeds the elephant and makes the problem bigger, though, doesn't it?
Well, and that's the thing I think that we sometimes when people get into these situations, they kind of don't take that into consideration. So if you have, say, a colleague, for example, who consistently comes to your team meetings late and, everybody's waiting and resentment is starting to build and people are getting frustrated and nobody says anything, nobody holds that person accountable, lets them know the impact, then what we're really doing, and that's sending the message that that's okay to come late. And the chances are that person will just continue to do it. So I think that's what we forget is that when we don't say anything, we're really sending the message, number one, that everything's okay. There's not a problem. And what happens is it builds and builds and resentment builds. And then finally, that person comes in late for the 10th time and you blurt out some unpleasant comment. And then, we're the ones who end up looking foolish because we kind of maybe overreacted in that particular situation. We don't think about the cost of not saying anything, and we are sending the message that it's okay. So if somebody speaks to us in a way that we experience as disrespectful, or maybe they tell jokes, but we don't find them funny, or, they're not getting, they're just not stepping up and doing their share of the work and we don't say anything, we're really sending the message that it's okay and we're going to get more of that behavior. And I think we forget about that. I think the other thing that happens is that generally problems get bigger. They don't get smaller. Like elephants get bigger as time goes on. And the problem becomes something that started out, well, if I just dealt with this when the problem first occurred, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But now here I am 6 months later, and people have got more vested in doing things a certain way and you haven't dealt with it. And now all of a sudden this problem is much, much bigger than it would have been. And when I think of those kinds of examples, I think back to when I was a lawyer, when, as a junior lawyer, a senior lawyer comes into your office, they give you a file, they tell you to work on it. And if you run into problems, you don't get that help right at the beginning, usually the problems start to escalate and they don't get smaller, they get bigger. And, so I always remind myself of that. I ask myself this question, if I look ahead, a week from now, a month from now, or a year from now, if I don't say anything, if I don't deal with this problem, am I okay with that? What is it going to look like? And when I ask that question, it's really given me the courage then to say, you know what, this is something I need to deal with now because this problem is actually going to get worse and I'm going to feel worse about it if I don't deal with it. So that's a question I love to ask myself, and I know a lot of my clients have found that to be a super helpful thing in terms of figuring out, yeah, there is actually a really big cost to not deal with it.